Welcome to TYT Sports, everybody. It's time for our annual baseball clip. Chris Liss, managing editor of Roto Wire. Jason Rubin, Met fan. Congratulations, Jay. Ben Mankiewicz. So, best month of the year for a sports fan, if you care about baseball, because you get, we're 4 weeks into the football season, we get meaningful football, the early season, we have an understanding of what's happening in the NFL. College football, if you care about that, is well underway with meaningful conference games, and then you get the baseball postseason. A weekend, Saturdays and Sundays for the next 3 weeks are just truly glorious.
Yeah, no horse racing, no tennis, though, so, it's okay.
Right, thank God. Good stuff happening. As we tape this now, we are on the eve of the American League wildcard game, Houston at Yankee Stadium. And then tomorrow we'll get that big matchup, which a game I really am eager to see, Garrett Cole and Jake Arrieta, and teams that won 98 and 97 games. It's not quite, I guess maybe this is ultimately what they did envision with the wild card, that it would be two terrific teams. And of course, 3 years ago, as much as it's frustrating for the Cubs to have one game and out, 3 years ago they wouldn't have been in the postseason at all. Tonight we have Keuchel at Yankee Stadium. And the numbers here I find convincing. Since 1995, guys, starting on 3 days rest.
It's a good stat.
Yeah, 31 and 47 in 78 starts. That's the record of the teams. The pitchers obviously don't have all the decisions, the starters. But the team record is 31 and 47 when you start your starter on 3 days rest with a 4.59 ERA. And remember who we're talking about here. We're talking about ones and twos exclusively,
right,
going on 3 days rest. So these are elite pitchers whose ERA has got to be more than probably a run and a half worse starting on 3 days rest. It doesn't work. It's a bad idea. There are, in limited sample sizes, a few pitchers who have been phenomenal at it.
Most recently,
Sabathia in 2009, Kurt Schilling in 01, Kevin Brown in 98, Jarrett Wright in 97, Mike Mussina in 97, Andy Pettit in 96, 5-1, 1.7 ERA on short rest. So you're banking on Keuchel's going to do that,
right,
as opposed to the overwhelming body of evidence.
So are you taking the Yankees money line here?
I already bet the Yankees. They're even money. They're plus 102, and they're at home. They're a much better team at home. Houston is 15 under on the road. The Yankees are 9 over at home. It's Tanaka. I think it's of course, Keuchel could pitch a shutout. He's left-handed. The Yankees have a lefty-heavy lineup. Right. All things those work in Keuchel's favor. I'll take these numbers any day of the week. I feel like I didn't put enough.
Ben, is there a pitcher in that rotation that you would throw over Keuchel tonight? What position do the Astros have to throw a better option?
I'd start a guy in 4 days rest.
You'd start a guy in 4 days
Just
rest.
anybody? Because I think McKee pitched.
And don't forget,
McHugh pitched also, though, I think, recently.
Then I'd start. The problem is Scott Kazmir's been so bad.
And you're pitching in Yankee Stadium. You're not pitching in the most pitcher-friendly ballpark in the country.
It's okay for lefties. I'll tell you this, because the short porch is for the left-handed hitters. Okay,
yeah, that's right.
And so so basically, right-handed hitters actually isn't that good for power for Yankee Stadium. So the guys who have the platoon advantage against Keuchel are going to have to hit it a long way to get it out. So that is one thing he has going for him. He's also a ground baller. Seems like, I don't know if you've parsed which pitchers do well on the rest and which don't, but he is not a below everybody weight type of guy, though he did increase his strikeouts dramatically this year. He's a guy who keeps the ball on the ground. It seems like someone like that, like an Andy Pettit, who's not overpowering, might be a better choice. Now, I'm just speculating. I haven't looked at the data and looked at which pitchers actually hold up better on shorter rest, but I would think that the power pitchers, the guys who are trying to blow you away, might get more tired out. So I still like the Yankees. I hope you're right. I'm a Yankees fan. But I am a little worried about this one.
Oh, no. Look, Keuchel is the right guy. If it weren't 3 days rest, I'd never.
Yeah,
I'd take Keuchel. But he's also been infinitely better at home, dominant at Minute Maid Park and not on the road. I just think the right bet is the Yankees.
Right.
Keuchel could pitch a two-hitter, and I would not be amazed.
Right.
Yeah.
Process, not results.
And the Astros also do have a pretty strong bullpen overall if they need to go to their bullpen.
I hate their bullpen. I hate their bullpen. It's deep but unimpressive.
There's not really a weak link in the bullpen.
They're all weak links. They had a nice year, but I don't want Pat Neshek in a troubled situation.
You don't want Harris. You don't like Thatcher.
I like Harris. I like Harris much better than I like when you have meaningful innings pitched by. I'm terrified every time Luke Gregerson comes in.
Oh yeah, and you don't want a right-hander. You don't want a right-hander going up against that lineup late in the game.
For you, that's fair to understand as to why you wouldn't like Gregerson.
No, he's a nice pitcher. It's just those are, and same with Neshek. They don't throw hard. This is an era where you're relievers have got what wins is 97 miles an hour with movement. I mean, of course that wins. That'll always win.
Right.
So I got it. I admire the Astros. They're at least a year ahead of schedule, and as an A's fan, it's depressing. Like we're effed. Like they're going to be good for 4 years. Right? That's going to be a team that's going to be around 90 wins, if not more, probably for the next 4 years.
Yeah, the A's could really use like an elite fielding, slugging third baseman, I think. Don't you think that would help them?
Yeah, like a right-handed hitter.
Yeah.
Like, so balance the lineup. That guy. I'm telling you in a couple, because look, we've said this real quick. We won, in 67 games this year, or 65, something like that. If we'd had Donaldson, we would have finished last and won 71 games.
Right.
You know, doesn't 72. And we got some nice players. So I think it was probably the right move.
You would have sold some more bobbleheads, though.
We would have sold some more bobbleheads. Okay, so that's the and then the big game tomorrow night. Arrieta, Cole, Cubs, Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Cole is very good. You know, it's just that he's going against the guy who just has not allowed runs in like half a season. Yeah. And so it's this crazy split between, you'd think the Pirates with Cole fully rested would be like an unbeatable team. I think the Pirates have a decent chance, though. They just got to get 1 or 2. They don't need to get 4 runs here. And, McCutchen, the lineup, is Polanco, Starling Marte. It's just a deeper lineup than it's been in a while for the Pirates.
It is, but it's also
what is the line in this? The Cubs lineup is pretty good, especially the left-handed version. Yeah, with Schwarber batting second and Fowler leading off, who's good against right-hand. I can't remember actually what his platoon split is, but he's been very good for them in general all year.
In the second half, he's been pretty good against righties.
Against righties. Yes. And then Rizzo has a reverse platoon split, actually, but it's not like he's a dud against right-handed pitching. And then Bryant can hit either side. I mean, it's a pretty good lineup there, too.
Montero and yeah, it's a nice line, and then it's deep. Like it's got,
Baez is on your bench.
Baez and Austin Jackson, like they're real players.
And Castro's been crushing it for 2 months.
Yes. Yeah,
he had a bad start, but he's been really good lately.
By the way, it's the Cubs are minus 137, so you're getting the.
I would take the Pirates
plus 127
with the odds. Yeah, Cole's good enough. I mean,
except this is a guy who he literally doesn't give up a run. So you're saying we know they probably can't score 3 runs.
Yeah, no, he's got to pitch a 1 or 2 run game and hope that they can scratch one out.
Look at come on, I can't. I know I've seen it before, but it's hard to believe the over/under in this game.
What is it, 5.5?
5.5.
Yeah, that's what that was my guess.
5.5.
Yeah, 5.5 is pretty low. You almost never get 5.5. Below 6 is very rare.
6 is a surprise.
But you know what? It's interesting because, and this might not be the best example to use, but I'm sure the over/under for all of Kershaw's playoff starts was something around there, and every time you go into that, you say to yourself, well, how is there going to be 5.5 runs scored?
Yeah, and or in the more second inning, there's 7.
And then exactly, if you bet that under on Kershaw, but that's not exactly the fairest example to use, as I mentioned, but. Again, with Jake Arrieta, how much playoff experience does he have? I mean, a lot of these teams, a lot of these young pitchers, which I'll get to much later on with my Mets, but in general, that's what worries me about some of these pitchers with no experience. I think experience is an underrated, and you can't even quantify that metric. But
I think it's overrated.
I'm sorry, I do find it overrated, but I'm going to go back to your mention of even people like Andy Pettitte, someone I would trust on the mound. Even though his numbers weren't necessarily great when he pitched in the playoffs, the Yankees hit for him. They always did.
That's random.
I'll say this. It seems like baseball of all the sports is the least important difference between playoffs and regular season because you're just throwing it to the catcher. And I don't know. It just seems like in football, the energy level is just so high. Maybe it affects baseball players too, but I just think it's very hard to quantify that in terms of who's going to do better. I don't know if there's any study that says guys who've had more playoff games pitch better. If there were, I would. Then I would maybe be swayed by it, but I don't think without the data.
Greg Maddux was not a great postseason pitcher. I mean, I don't think he was nervous.
Right.
I think he was going up against really good lineups,
right.
And there's some randomness to it. I just think I think the best pitchers, we saw in the postseason last year with the Royals. I mean, they weren't all young. Holland and Davis weren't young, but Ventura
was fine. Yeah, that's a good
they're
point.
Fine. I mean, we see these 21-year-old guys, Frankie Rodriguez with the Angels when they called him up nonsensically on September 17th, and all of a sudden he's the best pitcher in the postseason. I mean, he wasn't nervous, or maybe he didn't. He might have been incredibly nervous, and the nervousness might have made him succeed. We don't know.
Yeah.
They're professionals, so I'm dubious of that. Big series, obviously, Mets-Dodgers, first 2 at Dodger Stadium. Tremendous pitching matchups in this game, although I find that, and it happened with us too, as we started to talk, you start instantly talking about that Mets rotation and how exciting it is, but the Dodgers, those first 2 guys the Mets can't compete with. As good as those guys are, the Dodgers guys are better.
But they can compete with. I mean, Syndergaard,
Thank you,
Harvey,
Chris.
DeGrom, those guys are just I mean, they are not as good as Kershaw and Greinke. I will grant you that.
It's more than this. It's just.
I don't think it's that big of a gap. I think those guys are pretty lights out.
To be clear here, you have Jacob DeGrom, who is, if it wasn't for Kershaw, Greinke, Arrieta, he's the 4th best pitcher in baseball. So that gap can't be so big when you're talking about a guy coming off NL Rookie of the Year and also bringing in a sub 2.5 ERA, someone who
His ERA is 2.6. B, he pitched very poorly down the stretch.
he was shaky down the stretch, but let's not. But that's look, you're gonna use that arbitrariness for an entire season of baseball.
I'm saying you got a guy. All I'm saying is the Mets rotation is incredibly impressive. Kershaw's ERA is 2.33, and if you take his last 25 starts, it's 1.35. And Greinke went the whole season under 1.7. These guys are in a different stratosphere. Right. They're like Arrieta. They're as good as Arrieta. Yeah. Those two guys.
Yeah. Well, I think there is an advantage to the Dodgers, but I don't think it's that wide. Syndergaard struck out like 11 guys, gave up 0 runs the last time out. I mean, Syndergaard averaged the highest fastball for a full season of any starter since Fangraphs started tracking the stats.
Thank you.
This guy is just the stuff that he has is off the charts. He may not be quite as polished as those guys, but they're going to, the back end, they kill them. I mean, they absolutely destroy them. Well, and secondly, the Dodgers, those guys better go 8 innings. Greinke and Kershaw and get it to Jansen because that middle relief sucks. And I know this because I was in some very high-stakes fantasy leagues this year with Greinke and Kershaw, and if they got out of the 7th, it was over. I didn't even want to watch. The wind was blown. You're up 1 or 2 runs with that anemic Dodgers offense for the second half. The Dodgers offense was good in the first half, terrible in the second half. Forget it. These guys, what was the guy's name? Pedro Baez or whatever. Automatic blow the save. I mean, blow the win for me. And
I agree.
So, and again, if we want to talk about the back end, the Mets have the heavy advantage of the back end. While Cespedes was the shining rental car, as New York Times put it halfway through the season, Clippard, Addison Reed pickups for the Mets bullpen to bolster an already great pitching staff. It was big pickups.
Those guys are shaky, man.
Yeah,
but compared to what they were throwing out there for the first half of the season,
performed, I would be terrified every pitch that
I've been terrified of the Mets bullpen since I was born.
He walks so many guys.
Tyler Clippard, it's just like, oh, dude, it's like load the bases and get the line out.
That's right. The line out double play. Hey, he got out of it.
Sweet, I got the save. He gave up 2 runs, they were up 3, but I got the save. Yeah.
Look, I'll take the wins. Okay, I'll take the wins.
I got you. And having Clippard and Reed is better than what they had, and Sandy Alderson deserves credit for that. I love what we got from you guys for.
You're welcome.
For Clippard, but but the big issue, of course, is still Game 4. A couple things might happen in Game 4. One, we could easily see DeGrom back. Terry Collins says DeGrom will come back on 3 days rest if they're down 2-1, or he might do that if they're down 2-1.
Unless they throw Matz, who's their only lefty in the rotation.
Right. But either way, down 2-1, he was saying it might be DeGrom.
It might be DeGrom.
Anyway, right now they want Matz to go, but we won't know till Friday when they have to declare the roster whether Matz is even on the roster.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it's Cologne.
Is it the back stiffness?
And then as soon as it's Cologne against Alex Wood, then it stops being such an advantage in the back end. Although somehow I feel like Cologne is going to give you 6 innings and give up 1 or no runs, and you'll be scratching your head after.
Because he's immortal.
Yeah.
Well, the Dodgers' offense has kind of sucked the last half season. They were good in the first half. I think Puig is a big factor. He played, in the last couple games of the year, and they need, a healthy Puig is maybe their best hitter. I mean, Adrian Gonzalez is pretty good, but he slowed down in the second half. Actually, Corey Seager is probably their best hitter, but I hope they play him every day. If they play Rollins over him, it's a big mistake. Justin Turner, I mean, they've got a lot of bats. Jock Peterson has done nothing since about mid-May. And, I don't love this lineup. I actually like, Michael
Justin
Conforto.
Turner hits 3rd or 4th. I mean, I got it. He had a nice year. This was a margin. This guy couldn't get was deciding between minor league contracts when the Dodgers signed him.
He's been good for a year and a half, though.
I got it. I know, but I mean, it's still you don't want him hitting 3rd,
right?
Yeah,
and the Mets, with Conforto coming up and hitting, Cespedes, David Wright getting healthy. I mean, they are not the total garbage lineup they were for half a season.
They led the National League in runs scored since the trade deadline.
And Granderson and Duda, those are guys they performed at.
David Murphy can hit. They've got a pretty deep lineup now.
Well, the Mets finally got their 250 and a bunch of home runs from Curtis Granderson, something that we didn't really want from the Yankees in the first place.
Gets on base.
He gets on base.
I think the Mets lineup is better than the Dodgers.
It's far better than the Dodgers lineup.
The Dodgers had this 3-way what every team craves, which was right-handed power. I mean, for as interesting as the Dodgers' choices are, they had Hanley Ramirez, Matt Kemp, and Yasiel Puig from the right side, and nobody could match that. The Blue Jays are the only team now that can match that power from the right side. And then they had none of them. Yeah, they're all three of them are gone. That is a massively weakened lineup.
The Blue Jays and their offense, which includes almost 3 guys who hit 40-plus home runs. Encarnacion, I think, finished 3 short with.
Well, you talk about right-handed power, Encarnacion, Bautista, and Donaldson.
A scary amount of power in that lineup, and even so much so that their starting pitching, David Price becomes a part of that rotation. It immediately bolsters their obviously their starting 5. But then you have Estrada and you have R.A. Dickey, who's posted sub-3 ERAs.
Marcus Stroman is.
I'm sorry, Stroman was the other one too.
That's the thing. They got him out of nowhere because he's supposed to miss the year.
Didn't he have the ACL? And he's been shining since he came off.
Yeah, this is a team that was pretty good, and then you're like, I tell you what, we're going to add David Rice and Marcus Stroman at the top of the rotation. That was an amazing change for them, and that's why I think. That's why I think they're the favorites to win the World Series. Who knows?
Well, they are Vegas-wise.
They are. Yeah. And then also very quickly, the Kansas City Royals, a team last year who back in August I made a bet that they make the World Series, they win the ALCS because of 2 specific statistics. One, they strike out the least in baseball. That carried over 15.9% K rate. They put the ball in play, and as defensive analytics become more and more a part of the game, they save runs. They save a lot of runs. Last year, their outfield saved the most runs in baseball by a shocking amount.
Now that's going to be
almost 100 more runs saved, I think, than the second-place team. And then this year, it's carried over so much so, adding Zobrist, adding Morales, all helping with the Royals.
I think you know, Chris and Jason, that we're going to know whether the Royals have a reasonable chance or a significantly lesser chance in this series 5 pitches into Game 1. Like, is Johnny Cueto a number 1 starter?
Yeah.
Or is he going to get knocked around and they're going to have no faith in going to him in Game 5 if they even get to that? Because this team, they need Johnny Cueto to be terrific, and he was not average. He was terrible down the stretch.
Welcome to the American League with the DH.
With a significant, but also a drop in velocity. Something's wrong. I mean, I was listening to GMs on MLB radio, and guys saying, I just wouldn't sign him. I wouldn't sign him. There's something wrong. It doesn't matter. I don't need to do the medical test. I know it. I'm going to invest that money in Jordan Zimmerman. It's safer. He's not as dominant, but it's safer.
But World Series, who's making it? We'll do another clip after we get to the ALCS, NLCS. But who's making the World Series, Ben?
I don't know. I mean, nobody knows.
Come on, you got to make. Don't be that guy.
Quote my friend who I've never met, Billy Bean. It's a crapshoot, and I think that the whoever wins the wild card game in the National League, and then the winner of that Cardinal series, whether it's the Cardinals or the wild card winner, are a better bet to beat the lineups offered by the Mets and the Dodgers. But Kershaw and Greinke pitch well. Of course, the Dodgers go to the World Series, and the Mets for the same reason could. So, but I'll say the winner of that National League Central Series, and I'll go with the Royals.
There we go. That's one. Chris, will you be a little more fun?
I'm going to go Yankees over Cubs. A-Rod hits a walk-off. As he's rounding the bases, he gives the finger to Bud Selig. It says, "Look who shamed the game now, bitch."
Here's what we'll get. We'll get some non-baseball fans to watch Yankees-Cubs. That World Series.
That would.
That World Series would.
Or, alternatively, the Rangers win it and Josh Hamilton wins a walk-off homer and gives the finger to Artie Moreno. One of those 2 things is what I want.
Until you said this, we've been talking for 22 minutes. That was the first utterance of the word Rangers.
Rangers.
Nobody thinks they have a chance.
But a great story. And, of course, it's the postseason. Of course, they have a chance. They got Cole Hamels. They have a chance.
Yeah.